Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Today we're diving into utility versus security. Now, I want you to picture a giant boxing ring where two of the absolute biggest, most misunderstood buzzwords in Web3 are about to square off. In one corner, we've got utility tokens, and in the other, security tokens. If you spend any time looking at Web3 projects, you see these terms literally everywhere, right? But figuring out exactly how they differ, well, it's not just a matter of semantics. It's totally foundational to how you approach the whole blockchain space.
So if you've ever looked at a project and felt completely confused about whether it's a utility or a security token, trust me, you're not alone. It's honestly one of the most common hurdles for people digging into the crypto ecosystem. But here's the thing, grasping this distinction is the absolute master key to navigating the crypto world smarter. Because once you know what a token is actually built to do, you can instantly decode the purpose of a project, the intent of the developers, and what you're actually holding in your digital wallet.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, Utility Tokens Explained, and how they help you access the ecosystem. Let's meet our first contender, the utility token. For this one, I want you to think fast, think digital, think access. By definition, a utility token is one that provides you access to products or services right inside a specific blockchain ecosystem. These aren't just things you lock away in a vault. They're designed to let you interact directly with the software. Kind of like digital access keys, or actually think of them like arcade tokens. You don't buy an arcade token because you think that little brass coin is going to make you rich, right? You buy it to play the game. And that, right there, is the essence of a utility token.
When we look at their specific use cases, it's really all about function. When you have a utility token, you use it to operate apps within that ecosystem. Or maybe you use it to pay for specific premium features on a platform. They literally power these platforms, acting like the internal engine, you know? And from a project's perspective, these tokens are incredibly powerful tools to build demand. You'll often see them used in initial coin offerings or ICOs to raise funds. The developers are basically saying, hey, buy these access keys now to fund our build, and you'll be able to use them in our ecosystem once it goes live. So again, it's all about access and usage.
Moving on to Section 2, Security Tokens Explained, and what it means to represent ownership. Okay, let's step out of the arcade for a second and walk straight into a boardroom. Time to meet our second contender, security tokens. Now, you might notice my tone shifting a bit here. We're slowing down, getting a little more grounded, because this is exactly where the blockchain meets traditional finance. The definition here changes the game entirely. A security token represents actual ownership or investment in an asset recorded right on the blockchain. So instead of a digital access key, think of this more like a digital deed or a traditional contract. You're not buying this to unlock a cool software feature, you're holding it because it represents your stake in something real and valuable.
These tokens act just like traditional investments. They can represent shares in a company, they can represent bonds, they can even represent physical real estate that's been fractionalized and put on the blockchain, which is pretty wild. And because they represent these heavy-hitting traditional assets, they inherently offer profit potential tied to the success or the value of that underlying asset. Basically, you hold a security token because you're making an investment, plain and simple.
All right, Section 3, the Great Divide, and the big R word, regulation.
So what happens when these two face off? Just look at this stark contrast. Over on the left, we've got utility tokens, which operate in a space that is mostly unregulated. It's kind of the digital Wild West, where speed and innovation often just outpace the rulebooks. But over on the right, security tokens. Because these are actual investments, they are heavily regulated by financial authorities. And guys, this isn't just a minor difference. It completely dictates how these tokens are created, sold, and traded from the ground up.
Now, why does this really matter to us? Well, if you're looking at security tokens, that regulation brings a lot to the table. Security tokens offer solid legal protection. They're designed to ensure compliance for investors, and they operate by following much stricter legal frameworks. Think about it. If you're buying a token that represents a share in a real estate property, you definitely want the peace of mind that there's a real legal framework backing up your digital deed, right? That is exactly the regulated environment everyday investors rely on.
Okay, the crucial point is right here. Let's use this as a quick palate cleanser to really lock this into your memory. If you remember absolutely nothing else from this explainer, remember this. Utility equals access and usage. Security equals ownership and profit potential. Access versus ownership. Usage versus investment. That is the core binary here.
Which brings us to Section 4, navigating crypto risks and the balance of oversight versus danger. Look, understanding definitions is great and all, but understanding your personal financial safety, that's essential. Because utility tokens are mostly unregulated, they inherently carry a much higher risk profile. There's simply less oversight looking out for the buyer. Basically, if the ecosystem fails, your access key becomes totally useless. On the flip side, security tokens generally represent a lower risk, specifically because of those stricter legal frameworks we just talked about. Now, let's be clear, lower risk doesn't mean zero risk. It's still an investment after all, but it does mean there are structural, legal guardrails in place that utility tokens simply do not have.
Finally, let's wrap things up with Section 5, the bottom line, and making smarter decisions. So, how do we tie all these concepts together? How do we use this big showdown to bring some harmony to how we view our crypto portfolios? Well, it all comes down to recognizing their dual nature. Utility tokens power the platforms. They are the fuel for the Web3 engine. Security tokens, on the other hand, represent the investments. They're like the digital evolution of Wall Street. They do two entirely different jobs, and a healthy blockchain ecosystem actually relies on understanding and utilizing both. As our source material perfectly summarizes, knowing both helps you make smarter crypto decisions. You are no longer flying blind here. When you look at a new project now, you can ask yourself, am I buying fuel for an engine, or am I buying a share of the factory? Having that knowledge empowers you to safely and strategically navigate the entire landscape. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought to ponder as you look at your own portfolio. Based on your goals, your risk tolerance, and what you actually want to achieve in this space, which token type fits your Web3 future? Are you looking for access to the next big digital ecosystem, or are you looking for regulated digital ownership? Take a minute to really think about it. Thanks for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.